Pardon me, Miss Stoddard. Are you familiar with the Irishman Bram Stoker and his newest novel, Dracula?
Well, I've read it.
Oh, well, that's perfect. He's agreed to do a brief interview with us.
Well, that's not the sort of thing I'd normally write about in my column.
Well, he may or may not have requested a woman. But that's just fine. You're the best lassie we've got on this paper. You'll do a fine job.
One of the most interesting and exciting of recent novels is Mr. Bram Stoker's Dracula. It deals with the ancient medieval vampire legend, and in no English work of fiction has this legend been so brilliantly treated. This is the famous king vampire, Count Dracula. In ancient times, a warlike Transylvanian noble. The scene is laid partly in Transylvania and partly in England. The first 54 pages, which give the journal of Jonathan Harker after leaving Vienna until he makes up his mind to escape from Castle Dracula. The novel is unrivaled in recent fiction. Stoker was interviewed for the article by Miss Jane Stoddard, known affectionately to readers of the British Weekly by the name of Lorna. At the publication, Stoddard was chief assistant to Dr. William Robertson Nicoll, proprietor, editor, and contributor to British Weekly. What you are about to witness is that interview.
On Monday morning, I had the pleasure of a short conversation with Mr. Bram Stoker, who, as most people know, is Sir Henry Irving's manager at the Lyceum Theatre. He told me in reply to a question that the plot of the story had been a long time in his mind, and that he spent about 3 years in writing it. He'd always been interested in the vampire legend.
'Tis undoubtedly a very fascinating theme, since it touches both on mystery and fact. In the Middle Ages, the terror of the vampire depopulated whole villages.
Is there any historical basis for the legend?
It rested, I imagine, on some such case as this. A person may have fallen into a death-like trance and been buried before the time. Afterwards, the body may have been dug up and found alive, and from this a horror seized upon the people, and in their ignorance they imagined that a vampire was about. The more hysterical, through excess of fear, might themselves fall into trances in the same way. And so the story grew that one vampire might enslave many others and make them like himself. Even in the single villages, it was believed that there might be many such creatures, when once the panic seized the population, their only thought was to escape.
In what parts of Europe has this legend been most prevalent?
In certain parts of Styria, it has survived longest and with the most intensity, but the legend is common in many countries, to China, Iceland, Germany, Saxony, Turkey, the Chersonese, Russia, Poland, Italy, France, and England, besides all of the Tartar communities.
In order to understand the legend, I suppose it must have been necessary to consult many authorities. Was your knowledge of the vampire legend from a number of miscellaneous readings?
No one book that I know will give you all the facts. I learned a good deal from Gerard's essays on Romanian superstitions, which first appeared in the 19th century and were afterwards published in a couple of volumes. I also learned something from Baring Gould's Werewolves. Mr. Gould has promised a book on vampires, but I do not know whether he's made any progress with it.
Mr. Stoker, can I ask you, have you written this with purpose?
I suppose that every book of the kind must contain some lesson, but I prefer that readers should find it out for themselves.
I'm sure they will.